Good morning, Commissioners, Chief Choi, Madam Secretary, Acting Inspector General Florence Yu, Mr. City Attorney Carlos De La Guerra, and members of the public. Today is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect Commissioners Suthers, Shields, and Garcia are present, and we have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning. The Police Commission is committed to ensuring equal access to its meetings. It is requested that individuals who require the services of a translator contact the board secretary no later than the day preceding the meeting. Whenever possible, a translator will be provided. Sign language interpreters, assistive listening devices, or other auxiliary aids and/or services may be provided upon request. To ensure availability, you are advised to make your request at least 72 hours prior to the meeting you wish to attend. All public comment will be heard during item number 2 on the agenda. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of the speakers will be a speaker in this room will go first, then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate between speakers in the room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you're free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinion shall be deemed off-topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in this meeting in a number of ways outlined on the agenda. A message for those attending the meeting in person. These meetings are regular meetings between the board, the department, and key stakeholders. Meetings of the Board of Police Commissioners are open to the public. The state's Ralph M. Brown Act affords the public the opportunity to be present at the meetings, hear the presentations and dialogue in real time, and provide feedback via the public comment period. During these meetings, there's a need for the board to carry out public business expeditiously without delays or disruptions. Members of the audience shall not engage in any conduct which causes an actual disruption of the meeting. Those attending in person, you're reminded that disruptive behavior will be cause for removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. All attendees must be seated. Failure to follow this rule will result in a warning and/or removal from the meeting. At this time, we'll move to item number 1, the report of the Chief of Police, Chief Choi.
Thank you, and good morning, President Suthers, Vice President Shields, Commissioner Garcia, Acting Inspector General Yu, City Attorney De La Guerra, and Executive Director Mr. Sibley. I'll start my comments just by saying that in the past week, we've had no officer-involved shootings and no categorical uses of force. Year to date, we've had a total of 23 18 shootings in comparison to the same time last year where we had 28 officer-involved shootings. That's a decrease of 17.9%. Then moving on, I'd like to share some positive examples of some police work from last week. So on October 9th at approximately 5:10 hours, units from Hollenbeck Patrol Division responded to an open 911 call. It was in the area of Lorena Street and 4th Street. Upon their arrival, officers observed a large structure fire and requested a backup. As they approached the scene, they heard cries for help coming from inside the burning building. Acting quickly, they breached a window and rescued an unconscious female, carrying her to safety. Additional LAPD units arrived and coordinated evacuations and traffic control to assist the fire department while they extinguished the fire. No other officers or firefighters were injured during this incident. The fire department battalion chief later commended the initial responding officers for the quick actions, acknowledging that their efforts contributed to the saving of an unconscious female's life. And while we often find ourselves witnessing the worst situations, it's important to recognize the best of what our officers do each and every day, and I'm proud of all the officers that responded and worked this incident. We also had an incident regarding cargo theft. On October 8th, detectives from our cargo theft unit received information from Nike security representatives about stolen Nike products taken from a train container. By working with Nike Security and using a variety of investigative tools, detectives were able to identify a possible location where the property was being stored, which was in the LA area. Detectives responded and spoke to local business owners in that area. They reviewed security footage and determined that the stolen property was still likely in one of the businesses in that area. A search warrant was obtained, and during the surveillance of the location, suspects were seen loading a truck with the possible stolen merchandise. Ultimately, 5 suspects were detained. 1 was arrested for receiving stolen property. Detectives seized over $400,000 worth of unreleased Nike shoes and $71,000 worth of laptops and Bluetooth speakers. And on October 10th, charges were filed against the suspects, which included receiving stolen property and enhancements for prior convictions of similar conduct. Our officers in the cargo theft unit continue to work hard to tackle cargo theft and protect both businesses and residents. I'm incredibly proud of the work that they do. This recent investigation is just one example of the unique capabilities that we have within the Los Angeles Police Department, especially in specialized units like our cargo theft unit. Moving on to crime. So again, we're presenting offense-based crime numbers except for our homicides and victim shots, which are hand-counted in year-to-date numbers. So for the 4-week period ending October 12th compared to the prior 4-week period, combined persons and property crimes are down 3.6% or minus 344 victims. Person crimes are up 1.9% or plus 41 victims, and property crimes are down 5.2% or minus 385 victims. Compared to 2023, the city has seen a year-to-date decrease in our homicides by 11.5% or minus 30. We continue to trend in the right direction, reducing the number of homicides in the city. And comparing those numbers to year-to-date numbers to 2022, we've seen a decrease of 29.4% or minus 96 homicides. And then gang-related homicides also continue to trend down. We're at a minus 35.2% year-to-date compared to 2023, and we're down 54.4% compared to 2022. Year-to-date citywide victims shot is down 152 victims or minus 15.8% compared to 2023, and down 305 or minus 27.4% compared to 2022. And then for aggravated assaults, for the past 4 weeks, aggravated assaults are up 1.5% or plus 20 compared to the prior 4 weeks. Where we're seeing this increase is in 77th Street area, where they have a 4-week increase of 23% or plus 29 aggravated assaults. And then for our robberies, for the past 4 weeks, robberies are up 6.7% or plus 44 compared to the prior 4 weeks. Again, robberies, the area with our significant drivers and robberies is southeast area. We've seen in the past 4 weeks a 28.8% increase or plus 15 robberies. And again, these robberies are predominantly occurring in open areas, public streets and parks, with the second most common occurrence being in small businesses, stores, mini marts, those sorts. 42% of all of our robberies are still strong arm, meaning physical force, no weapon used. And then 22% of our robberies are armed robberies with firearms. And we continue to focus on trying to enforce any crime involving a firearm. Our burglaries, for the past 4 weeks, our burglaries are up 2.9% or plus 29. And then breaking that down into commercial and residential burglaries, our commercial burglaries are up 12.8% or plus 46 citywide for the last 4 weeks. But our residential burglaries are down 3.2% or minus 19 compared to the prior 4 weeks. And then moving on to motor vehicle theft, for the past 4 weeks, motor vehicle thefts are down 2.8% or minus 53 compared to the prior 4 weeks. Some areas where we're still being challenged in our motor vehicle thefts are Southwest area and Rampart area. Southwest shows a 22.9% increase or plus 27, and Rampart shows a 24.4% increase or plus 20 motor vehicle thefts. And the most common vehicles being stolen are still the Kias, Chevys, and the Hyundais. And then our personnel strength for sworn personnel as of October 14th is 8,795. Civilian personnel is at 2623, and our reserve officers are at 378. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. And again, I'd like to commend the officers who responded to the fire. It's just another example of the brave acts that they engage in each week, and we'll certainly appreciate their efforts and their courage in doing so on this occasion.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to defer to Vice President Shields for any comments or questions regarding your report.
Thank you, Chief, for the report. And I didn't have many questions for the prepared remarks that you had. Had one question about there were news alerts indicating yesterday that a motorcycle officer was struck by a vehicle. Is the officer okay? And can you provide any input on that?
Yes, I can. I am aware of it. I do have all the details, but I don't want to read all the confidential stuff.
And understand
If I
if
could
this is
give you a brief-
if
yes.
it's an ongoing investigation, you don't have to get into that. But I just wanted to know: did this officer survive?
Yeah,
Expected to
officer's
recover?
okay, involved a express shuttle bus regarding the Dodgers game. But the specific injuries and things like that, and he is in stable condition, so he's going to be okay. But it was a motor officer that was assigned to the Dodgers game.
Thank you. And since you mentioned the Dodgers, how has have there been any incidents relating to the games, or have they been going smoothly here in Los Angeles?
I'm very happy to say that there's been very few incidents. There have been over the divisional series and now the conference, there's been, I think, just a couple arrests, alcohol related, but it has by and large been a very peaceful, safe event for all the fans and the officers, and I'm happy and encouraged by that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia?
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kalanche? No, thank you. Okay. We'll now move on to item number 2, public comment period. Madam Secretary, please call our first speaker.
Our first speaker is R. Mather.
Good morning, officers. I am very much happy to see you guys because you are the pride of the country and the pride of the city. The reason I have come here because I have brought my information that I was badly beaten in a hospital premises at the direction of the doctor. It so happened I was admitted, I was burned in my house, I was admitted there, and for 2 weeks they took some action, but thereafter they didn't know any action. So I wanted to go back home, and I repeatedly requested them to send me home, but they said yes, 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 yes. So 3.5 months gone, I was lying there, the food was very bad, I was doing nothing, so I wrote them a letter that I am leaving by 1st of August. When I dressed up and about to go, and they told me, no, we have to give you blood because they lost a lot of blood at the time of operation. I waited 2 hours, then again they told me we have to give you blood. In the process, what happened, my ride had gone back home. It was the access which was supposed to take me home. And then when I dressed up and asked them to go get me direction, instead of giving me direction, they collected about 15 people and they all jumped on me and beaten me like a mercilessly. And I was not able to walk, and my heart and lungs were damaged, and I can show you they have put up a patch on my heart that your heart can stop anytime. I have come to request you guys that I should be given a justice by you guys because you are the pride of the country and pride of the city. Give me a justice that the hospital has beaten me mercilessly for no reason, and that ultimately they shifted me, they like a goat you kill, they tied my hands and legs for 4 hours and left me in the room till the ambulance came and relieved me from there. So my humble request to all of you guys that such an incident has happened in LSC USC Medical Center, in the burn center, and they beaten me mercilessly, and I'm always very much thankful to you guys, and I want a justice to be given to me, and that's the reason I've approached you guys, because you have authority and you can investigate the whole thing. And I'm very much thankful to you for the actions you are doing in the city and that maintaining the law and order.
Sir, thank you. We have an officer that's behind you, and he's going to take your information.
Thank you very much, sir. God bless you all.
Next, we have Mona M.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I guess you probably are wondering why I'm here every week without fail, even though sometimes I don't get called on to speak. In March, there was an incident. There was a help sign that was put up in the window of the blue building of Scientology. Officers were called, and when they got there, they checked with security and then just left. They didn't even investigate the sign. I'm sure the person that put it up there was punished. After that incident, the planners were placed out on the sidewalks in the easement to stop demonstrators. The street was closed off to further deny all of us about our First Amendment rights. People are not there protesting the religion, but the abuse and human trafficking within the so-called religion. A few weeks ago, there was a gentleman that was trafficked here from another state. Scientology put him out on the street with $12 left to his name and no way to get back to where he had started from. Not even a room for the night. Why? Because they found out he was gay. 2 nights ago, I was watching the demonstrators down at the Blue Building having a barbecue, feeding the unhoused, when I saw a person take a child, maybe 9 or 10 years old, into the building. And I was screaming at the TV, kids cannot consent. Why didn't I call the police? Because to the outside world or even the police, it looks like a simple act. But when you know the atrocities of what happens behind those blue walls, it is an utter gut punch. I want to remind you of your duties to protect and serve the children of Los Angeles. And I only bring up the planners because they are symbols of the overall problems. The planners, which are not permitted per your city codes and are a violation of the ADA, are just a symbol of the main problem. I'm asking you, Chief, the new chief, and all of the members, all the commission members, to look at what is going on behind those blue walls and make reparations to your city codes and for the children. Thank you, and I yield back my time.
The next speaker, please, Hassan Tran.
Good morning, everybody. Is my name Hassan Tran. Please help me put my name in U.S. government system, telling them I'm here today. I am a person very important to all American people and all police department all around USA, and all USA veteran and all U.S. military. I am with Los Angeles Police Department fighting to protect all of us right and safety. Thank you.
Next, we have AG Bonta.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Yeah, so this is yet again the billionth time I've called in, and I just want to say directly to temporary Chief Choi and the new chief, all right? You have 2 known child sex predators that are both Scientologists, and your division let them get away. Number one, Wendell, in May of 2024, this year, Northeast Division officers responded to a man exposing his genitals, masturbating, and defecating on the public sidewalk in broad daylight. The officer was shown this video of this guy, Wendell, who was a Scientologist, black man, about 5'10", doing this, and said there's nothing wrong. Number two, Anthony D'Amato Jr., yet another child sex predator who is also a Scientologist, literally continues to sexually stalk and harass a minor boy and his mother, threatening to rape him every single fucking day, and you guys do nothing. Why is it that I have to go to EA, Electronic Arts, to get his fucking IP and all of his other current addresses where you guys can't do your fucking job to track down and issue a arrest warrant? He's violating his clutch restraining order, and you're letting a fucking child sex predator run around. Is it because he's a Scientologist? Because there's a clear pattern of behavior here. He's not the only one. You have Wendell and you have Anthony D'Amato Jr., also known by his street name as ZDT. Why is it that I have to do your fucking job for you? Go after the child sex predators. Los Angeles is literally known as the child sex predator capital of America. You have fucking Weinstein, Epstein, and now literally Leah Safian, another known Epstein family lawyer, stalking and harassing Scientology protesters. What the fuck is wrong with you guys? Go after the real criminals, the child sex predators, not the fucking Scientology critics. This is absolutely disgusting. Your city is literally child sex predator capital of the world. That is what LA is known for, and it's thanks to the LAPD. That's who protect and serve means, is to protect and serve the fucking chomos. I have both of their addresses. I know exactly where they are. Why aren't you fucking issuing an arrest warrant? This is disgusting. What will it take? Huh? What if it was your child being sexually stalked and harassed? Or your significant other being sexually stalked and harassed and being issued with threats of rape every single fucking day and having SWAT calls placed on you? It's absolutely fucking disgusting. I can't stand the sight of you guys, but I come here every day because you need to fucking hear. All right? You need to hear this shit. I'm here to fucking shame you each and every goddamn time you have this meeting. This is disgusting. This is what you guys do for your $200,000 a year salaries. You're using your taxpayer money to fucking protect chomos. It's absolutely revolting. I am sickened by you, and I'll soon be in LA in person to tell you this shit as well, to your fucking face. I'm gonna look you straight in the eye, and I want you to look right back at me so you can fucking look at the public and say, I protect and serve chomos. That's exactly what you're fucking doing. Absolutely disgusting. Two child sex predators.
The next speaker, please. Audit LA.
Good morning. I do want to thank the officers that ran into a burning building to save people. That's great. And to any officer that does honor their oath to protect and to serve. I'm not here about them, though, although I do thank them. I'm here about an officer whose name is Roland, badge serial number 41378. And I'm here to publicly complain against him to the commission, to LAPD, and to the Inspector General's office. I hope the actual victim of this officer files a complaint and a lawsuit, because what happened a couple of days ago, he was protesting Scientology. Again, it's become well-known that they traffic people, that there's been a lot of child abuse victims that survived this, that there's still stuff going on that you guys are not handling. And there's been enough complaints about the police officers who are not handling it right. You guys are not training them. They are trying, Scientology is getting endless things to get the street closed. But it's not closed to pedestrians, it's not closed to protesters, it's closed to cars. And your officers are not trained when Scientology calls and say there's a man assaulting people. They come, code 3, whatever, enraged or on alert. And it's a bogus crime. It's just somebody saying, hey, you guys deserve better than $47 a week. And this officer in particular, came really very aggressive, no de-escalation skills, which is another thing you're supposed to be teaching them. And he, was, going at saying that you have to go, you're going to be arrested, this is private, and it's not. It is absolutely public, that is for sure. They need to know this going in there, that it's a lie from Scientology. And so then, the protester did. He said, I think he called him a pig or whatever, because he was coming at him aggressively. And I honestly don't like that term, because don't take this the wrong way. I love pigs, and I don't like, I don't want a comparison between a cute little pig and a bad cop. And I'm not saying all cops are bad. I'm not one of those people. But this officer got so enraged, he was pulling out his billy club like he was going to go beat this guy for just calling him a pig. I bet if I called everyone in here a pig, I bet you every last one of these officers are just gonna like not even bat an eye. This is not gonna even faze them. Because they've been trained, most of them, I'm gonna say, have been trained like that. They know that's just part of that. There's gonna be protesters, there's gonna be dissent, there's gonna be a lot of people that don't like you. And they get it, they're prepared. So I'm not painting everyone with that brush. But this officer is unhinged. This officer needs to be taken off the street immediately. Because honestly, if I see him in the street, he's scared of me. Because he was ready to arrest this guy for what? For nothing. He did nothing wrong. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. There's a gentleman over there who'll take your complaint.
Thank you. Thank you. Which one?
Sergeant, if you could.
The man in the gray suit. Thank you.
Next, we have Betty Lay.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
I'd like to speak on to the chief and agenda items, public comment.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay. First off, I'm hoping that the interim chief will have enough respect to answer my email. You still have the opportunity to let the Board of Rights know that you want them to relook at the investigation, and you can ask for an internal review and recommend that the captain and lieutenant in question is not terminated. You know what I'm talking about. I also support all the donation agenda items, and in public comment, I'm hoping that City Council hurries up and approves Jim as our chief and get his swearing in ceremony going so that we can all work with him. I'm very, very delighted that he was chosen. Thank you, Mayor Bass. That was great. And with that, I'm going to yield the rest of my time.
The next speaker, please, Hamid Khan.
I was just trying to catch a few things because I'm looking at this consent agenda item, and the first A says, relative to grant application and award for the demonstration program on trauma-informed, victim-centered training for law enforcement on domestic violence, dating violence, yada, yada, yada. And then just today, the LAPD's headline says, LAPD is toxic toward women, a whistleblower lawsuit claims. So how often do you want to see that? How often does this keep on coming up, that how this department is so toxic towards women? I mean, it's just a toxic institution. Let's just kind of put it in that context. And we have posted a whole timeline on our website, stoplapdspying.org, that covers years and years of LAPD's domestic violence, sexual assault, child sexual abuse, where they were having orgies with 16-year-old cadets when they would take them camping and things like that. So this is something that is not surprising, but it's also, it's pathetic that with all the money that it keeps on getting, which again then brings me that all the grants that we have seen around the use of force, all the language we've seen around de-escalation, all the language that we have seen around shootings of people when LAPD remains one of the most murderous police departments. And I think that's what we keep on bringing week after week after week to the community and folks around here as well, that this is a sick place. This is a sick place. This is a toxic institution, and where it's given and rebranded different names. It's called data-driven policing. It's called data-informed, community-focused policing. It's called community policing. It's called proactive policing. It's called predictive policing. It's called precision policing. Like the whole menu of language, but the outcomes remain the same. because you cannot change. You cannot change institutional prerogatives. You cannot change. And lastly, I want to bring is that, there's something about behavior as well. So let's talk about behavioral surveillance. Rasha Shield, as you're a prosecutor as well, observed behavior reasonably indicative of pre-operational planning. The fuck is that supposed to mean? Do you know what I'm talking about? That's how suspicious activity is defined. Observed behavior reasonably indicative of pre-operational planning. That I'm observing your behavior that reasonably indicates to me that you're thinking of doing something wrong. This is how policing is taking place. That's why we keep coming here week after week to expose the complete fraud, expose the complete fallacy, and expose the complete violence that is so entrenched within this system. And you all are a complete failure as that body to oversee.
Next, we have
Thank
Steve
you.
Riley.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Hi, what items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
That was good morning, all in Italian. October is Italian Heritage Month. Yesterday was Columbus Day. Happy Columbus Day. Celebrating all things Italian and Italian heritage. There is an Italian American Police Officers Association. All communities should be recognized for the contributions they've made to our great country. We are all here communicating in the language English. Most of our ancestors, looking at the panel there and speaking for myself, did not speak English, but it's our common unifying language. And so we have to work together. I come here week after week to try to work with you on community policing to create a safer Los Angeles. It's not a partisan political issue, although some people may bring ideology to it. Today, I'm going to quote Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher. Everything changes and nothing remains still, and you cannot step twice into the same stream. There is nothing permanent except change. Things will change in the LAPD. They have changed. They continue to change. We have a new chief coming on board, Chief Jim McDonald, who we are excited to work with to bring us to a new level of community policing. One of the major issues I've been talking about is communication. We have a lack of communication between the police department and the public in many ways. That needs to be rectified. Now, I only get 3 minutes. I'm at 1 minute, 30 seconds now. I would like to pass on some ideas. One, Prop 36, yes. Why am I saying that? Because we have a problem with theft. When Chief Choi, who gave a very good report, and thank you to those hero officers, officers commit heroic acts on a daily basis. We just don't normally hear about them. But the theft issue, when you say that property crime is down, I know that that's a formula you're using, and maybe for political reasons, you want to give the impression that certain crimes are going down. Theft is going way up. Just talk to people, security officers, people working at Macy's at 7th Street in downtown Los Angeles. They're going to be closing in January. Target, 7th and Figueroa, they're closing. Why? Because the theft is through the roof. And that was caused by Prop 47, who Kamala Harris misnamed Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. The only thing it did was make theft a very prevalent. Now, 2 things. One, Christopher Columbus. Is Christopher Columbus a great American hero? By Dr. Taylor Marshall, Jack Prosebiec. Look it up. We need to have good education. Another video that you can watch by Harmeet Dillon, the shocking origin story of Kamala Harris and all the crimes she committed. Harmeet Dillon. Please look up that information. God bless the LAPD. Thank you, good officers.
The next speaker, Matheus Cadane.
My name is Matheus Kidane with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. I'm going to continue on Hamid's point about the donation for law enforcement behavioral health response program. And this seems to be a Department of Justice grant program that's being matched by the city. And on its face, it's kind of laughable that the LAPD would address behavioral health or mental health the Washington Post in this year released a report that showed that in 2 years of LAPD shootings, a third of those were behavioral health or mental health instances. The LAPD historically responds to mental health crises through violence. That's not something that can be trained out. But, we often talk about reforms of any sort, trainings, any kind of sophistication as a means of sanitizing racist violence in a lot of ways. And behavioral health, mental health has been used in just that way. In another kind of federal grant, we've talked about this before, but through the Department of Homeland Security's Countering Violent Extremism framework. And I see Errol Southers rolling his eyes because this is what he's made his career off of, right? The whole notion of radicalization theory that criminalize Muslim communities, black communities. Errol Southers' own framework really co-opted this and even sounds like a similar name. It's homegrown violent extremism, HVE. Now, a lot of this has been delegitimized. It's focused on Muslim communities. Errol Southers' own work focused on black Muslim youth, right, primarily. And in its kind of demonization by the community, righteous demonization, calling out just how explicitly racist it is, LAPD's PATH program, which is based on this framework, would literally call out political affiliations, religious institutions, things that are proxies for race or religion, right? What we saw was the work of academics like Dr. David Eisenman at UCLA and Stephen Wine at University Illinois in Champaign-Urbana to really pivot from this focus around terrorism and race really to mental health and public health, implement those frameworks. And so now risk factors are, suicidal ideation, struggling with gender identity, depression, and that's what the LAPD is using to criminalize youth. Again, any type of behavioral surveillance, behavioral monitoring for the LAPD is just a proxy for racial bias. That's always what it's going to be. And so to see this funding is particularly gross. And last thing I kind of want to end on is any notion of addressing behavioral health or mental health or even domestic violence or sexual assault, as in the other kind of agenda item on here, requires care. That's not what the LAPD is for. And I actually want to uplift an interaction I had walking in here to kind of make that point even further, where, we walk in, we have to put our stuff in a conveyor belt, we have to walk through a metal detector. I did just that today, like I do every other day, kind of in a hurry to get over here. And in placing my belongings in the little wooden box and walking through the little metal detector, an officer, Cliff Herrera out front, said, "I have to place the wooden box on the conveyor belt." I'm in a hurry to get in here. I put it on the conveyor belt because I'm trying to get inside. But I ask, I'm invested in the policies of LAPD and
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the next speaker.
Next, we have Carolina Goodman.
Your public comment has ended, sir. Please step away from the podium. Your public comment has ended. Please step away from the podium. This is your first warning and only warning that you are disrupting the meeting.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me?
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
I'm going to be speaking on item 4B.
Okay, 1 minute.
Carolina Goodman, League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles. Please review the longer written comment which we submitted yesterday about AB 481's annual report. The report is over 100-page long, and it's unreasonable to expect the public to be able to review it in a conscientious manner in the few days since it was posted. It's our hope that you would defer making recommendations to the City Council till after the required community meeting where people have the opportunity to discuss the report and ask questions. One thing I'd like to highlight is the fact that LAPD's crowd control policy, Addenda 11, was last revised in 2021. However, in 2022, California AB 48 reformed state law to significantly reduce circumstances for lawful use of less lethal projectiles and chemical agents for crowd control. These restrictions must be incorporated into LAPD policy. Thank you.
The next speaker, Jonathan Foster.
Hello, Jonathan Foster. On consent 3K on horses, George Washington had a high voice, which is why the horses liked him so much. Well, anyways, so I wanted to talk about the flamboyant use of rifles that I spoke about with Johnson. And I wanted to say this, and I've said this before, that Jones had a heart of gold. And reviewing all this stuff, Jones was told the wrong thing. the full perspective has changed my stance. There was a call from an employee that the guy hitting the lady had a gun, which was false. And I suggested that she needed to be arrested. She gave a false police report, and look what happened. Somebody else that died that didn't need to be, killed. So this is again from June 19th, 2018. Words, tiny, tiny percentage of citizen officer contact. Another one, how infrequent. And then there were 23 of this infrequent tiny percentages, there was 23% of the suspects fired at officers.
Categorical use of force incidents and officer-involved shootings in particular make up a tiny, tiny percentage of citizen-officer contacts. The illustration on page 56 and 57 really do a good job of illustrating just how infrequent these events are. You see that in most of these situations, the vast majority of these incidents, these situations, the officers were able to resolve these in a nonviolent way. The other thing I think that is important to remember is that in almost a quarter, 23% of the officer-involved shootings, the suspect fired at the officers or other individuals during the incident. So we can't lose sight about how dangerous police work is, and that the officers, of course, have a right to defend their own lives and an obligation to defend the lives of others. And that the officers, of course, have a right to defend their own lives.
So I agree with all that, but when we look at things like you're having a hard time hiring, or really that not a single command staff is eligible to be police, one of the things, they won't tell who sent the George Floyd Valentine around. How come? How come, Choi? How come we don't know about that? 3 years later, we haven't been told who sent the George. Do you like black people? I mean, don't you think they have a good reason to not like this effing thing? They sent a George Floyd Valentine. I know he's probably not the most rosy guy. This is why you're having problems, right? See, what I said about stuff in 2018, 2019, everyone's gone except for 3 people and several officers here. But the people that heard what I said, they didn't act on what I said. Yet they were here, right? So one of the things I've talked about is the net guns. So if you shot somebody with a net gun, maybe they might break an elbow or a wrist or something, but they'd still be alive. I've suggested body armor or net guns. How about a sleep log? Use of the shields, things that you aren't doing. Why? You want to hire some people? Do what I suggested.
Thank
The
you.
next speaker is Jamie Cusick.
Okay, I also want to address this first agenda item that Hamid and Matios have been speaking about, this 500K grant. We know, first of all, that like training of any kind doesn't work. It doesn't work in the way that you say it's going to work. It's not going to make these officers like better equipped to deal with victims of domestic violence. And at the same time, like it kind of does work in that the fact that you've had an officer go through this training will retroactively validate any actions that they might take in any situation. And so it enables you to kind of defend yourselves in public opinion. And it also enables you to continue to ask for more money and more money week after week for LAPD. The next thing I kind of wanted to touch on is just kind of the word or the phrase domestic violence, as if it's somehow fundamentally different or less significant than other kinds of like normal violence. Most harm that women experience occurs within their homes and is perpetrated by family members and partners. So this kind of qualifier of domestic violence is already kind of suspicious, to be honest. And I think the exact same thing can be said about state violence. When we talk about state violence, it's somehow seen as being special or rare or less significant than other kinds of violence. When in fact, like almost all violence, like the fact that America is structured the way that it is, with unhoused people dying in the street every day, and unbelievable wealth inequality being allowed to exist, that's the state at work, at all times around the clock. And I think like the kind of, as Hamid touched on as well, like, there are kind of you can't find another body in LA that is guilty of more so-called domestic violence than LAPD. And this is at the core of, it's at the root of what this department is. These officers think that they are Batman, they think that they're infallible. They see that they see themselves as these like big, strong men who are supposed to, protect women. And again, that kind of, because that's the mindset, it kind of retroactively justifies any way that they might actually kind of treat women in real life.
Thank you. Thank you. Your public comment has ended. Please step away from the podium.
The next speaker, Jason Reedy.
So it took the LAPD 7 days to name their latest shooters, and we found out that pig Thor Abiva shot at Daryl Morgan on October 3rd, 3 years and a day after he shot Grisha Alvadarian, yes, Papa, in Hollywood. Now, the LAPD won't tell you this information, but you can always count on the community to. Now, what you didn't mention was 17 piglets in your latest graduating class, compared to the 60 pigs you aspire for in each class. These are abysmal numbers, which we are all happy to hear. Now, the LAPD hasn't seen this low of a number in almost 10 years. When their November 2014 class graduated 16 pigs, $88,000 starting pay, $15K signing bonus, $24K housing subsidy, and somehow you still can't recruit. Stacy Spell, 29-year veteran of the LAPD, was recently spotted working at Occidental College harassing students. Now, why did he leave the LAPD? Was it because he was having an affair with one of the pigs he was tasked with overseeing? Was it because he was committing fraud while out on disability leave? Do tell. So I read an LA Times article yesterday that reported that since 2019, the city of Los Angeles has paid out a minimum of $11 million in damages for cases of discrimination, retaliation, and other workplace strife based on gender brought by LAPD pigs. This doesn't include the pending cases from that time, and at least $12 million in damages awarded by juries to women at the LAPD that the city is appealing after having been defeated in court. Now, we know this department loves losing appeals. Now, another part I wanted to highlight was the several claims of discrimination that have gone unreported, including a sergeant who says she was denied a transfer in direct retaliation for cooperating with an IA investigation into AirTag Al Labrada. Now, we've seen you proudly display Labrada's picture on a banner in September 2023, so this all tracks. Of course, Fabian, that's your good friend. Now, what else did this report reveal? Well, you had Christopher Marsden, someone who has been a media spokesperson for the LAPD, comparing female detectives to sex workers. Your favorite deputy chief, Mark Rana, was named in a whistleblower lawsuit, too. And you have women in your department detailing the abuse they've had to put up with, including the division that you mentioned earlier, Hollenbeck, where several sworn and civilian employees allegedly have faced retaliation for reporting misconduct. Now, if this is how you treat your own who report misconduct, why are you so quick to dismiss those of us who are treated as such, who expose the LAPD's harm and misconduct? Now, when Klotz was ignored by various LAPD pigs, she turned to the police commission, who left her on red. You guys didn't have nothing to say to her, right? You can't even respond to your own pigs. And lastly, I want to touch on this report by Florence that exposed LAPD in 2024 is still using paper records to track their trainee pigs and trainees. We know this isn't on accident. It's part of the way you maintain so much of the control of the info that flows out of this department. And the fact that LAPD, quote unquote, couldn't figure out with certainty who all the field training officers were is another instance of that. You boast about training, but the OIG report shows that rookie pigs are routinely told to forget everything you learned in the academy. Now, what else was detailed in this OIG report? Well, the hazing that pigs encounter, including how some are forbidden from speaking unless spoken to. You had one response.
Thank you. Thank you. Your public comment has terminated. Step away from the podium. Step away from the podium. You are disrupting the meeting. Please stop disrupting the meeting. It's your first and last warning that you are disrupting the meeting. You are disrupting the meeting. Step away from the podium. I'm ordering you out of the room. leave the room.
Who was the deputy chief that male detective was talking about in that story? Which deputy? Was it Pritchard? Pritchard? That's your name, right? Pritchard? That's who the male detective was sleeping with? That he was boasting about? What about the inappropriate email he sent to a female deputy, deputy attorney with Gaston? Anything about that? Nothing? That didn't make your report this morning, so I wonder when are you going to address that? When are you going to address that?
Madam Secretary, please announce the next speaker.
The next speaker is Roy Gorman.
Good morning, panel. I just came here, I've been here before, and I asked for help. I went from the president, White House, to the secretary, to the assistant director of the police, of the law department, and no one would help me. These policemen are now involved with the association and harassing me because I'm the gentleman that nominated our president down in Charleston, South Carolina for the Longshoremen Association, and you got that same problem coming up again on your hand. Now they have took my business. We cleared out all of the evil that was down there in Charleston, South Carolina Longshoremen Association. Now they took and disbanded, tore the whole organization apart. They have sold the Long Beach longshoremen to the Chinese. Who do I have to go to? Because they wouldn't let me in the J. Edgar Hoover building on 10th Street in D.C. I went to Locust and 6th Street Courthouse, and nobody can give me no kind of help, and I don't have no record, none whatsoever. Come up around Malcolm, come up around Dr. Adam Clayton Powell, and those people tell me with the days when you get to the point where you're going to see this system for what it is, you ain't going to like what you see. And I know a policeman in Charleston, South Carolina, never had to wear a gun, Walter Burke, and he could stop anything around Charleston. No one did no offense in the front of that man because he wore that badge for what it was. It was just like that general say. He don't give his oath to no president. He give it to the flag and to the people. And I hope that they took 3 buses right here in this Los Angeles and took my possession. I went to Venice Police Station. They made out a report. I waited for 2 weeks. They don't even have no kind of report on it. I still got my paper. I'm asking to stop these people. They even got people coming on the bus. They took all of my cars, closed my business. And what they done to the owner of that property, I know y'all know. They went all the way down in Mississippi and took his home down there. Took all his property up here. What do I have to do to be able to live like a person? Ira Reiner gave me an award for being such an outstanding person and helping the young folks there on Western Avenue. What do I have to do to be left alone? They got all my property, my cars, my clothes, my import, and everything.
Sir, thank you. This officer is going to help you.
No, this is the same man right here that handed me a card and never got in touch with me. I don't need no more help from you. Go on about your business.
The next speaker is Raul Montez.
Sir, we have someone else who's going to help you at the back.
I sure appreciate it.
The man in the gray
You're
suit,
welcome,
please.
sir.
Thank you.
Hello there, Dominic Choi, Chief of Police and Police Commission. Just want to read a quick quote by the late Attorney General Robert Francis Kennedy. He always highlighted the contributions made by the common man and woman to law enforcement. He said, "The glory of justice and the majesty of law are created not just by the Constitution, nor by the courts, nor by the officers of the law, nor by the lawyers, but by the men and women who constitute our society, who are the protectors of the law as they are themselves protected by the law. I am just disgusted at what happened on October 5th in the early morning hours, 3 a.m. This white suspect who lives with me, named, I can't make out his last name. He's a boarder, he rents a room, and he's a friend of Sean Evan Buer, who's trying to take possession of my landlady's $1 million home, who's a Korean woman who doesn't speak very good English, but she's been groomed. There's no doubt about it. Cases before the district attorney Gascon, and I'd like to see if he will take advantage of the fact that he's running for re-election. He does some prosecutions here and get him, Sean Buer, and this suspect named, I believe it's Colin or Callan. I can't make out his last name, but he actually threatened my life, and he came up to my door and says, "If you open that door, I'm gonna fuck you up and I'm gonna kill you, man." And he had just gone into the kitchen and got a knife. Now, I deceived him by turning off the light, and he went in the backyard with his boyfriend, and was out there hanging around. And then I went downstairs on Raphael Street, and I was waiting for him because I left the door unlocked. He went in there, and he was going to stab me in there. I knew he was going to do it, and he went in there because he ended up on the street with a knife in his hand. And I said, okay, let's see what he does. He's coming toward me, and and the idiot was looking in the dark area. And then I'm going to tell you the truth, I had my machete ready for him, okay? But he only came up so far, and he went back in. The following is the most disgraceful, in all respect, Mr. Dominic Choi, Chief of Police. This is a disgrace. 6 officers showed up. They refused to arrest this guy. They went up to talk to him. He threatened me with a criminal threat. He came down, knife wielding, out of the kitchen. My landlady, the poor lady, doesn't know what the hell's going on there. This guy's trying to steal her house. These are a couple of German Nazis that are trying to take this poor lady's house because she just was trying to enforce her house rules. Now, what they said, we are not going to arrest him, Raul. I said, why not? Just go back to your room. Fuck you. You don't tell me what to do. I want your supervisor. He says, I have no supervisor. The officers were JACAURS 454-443, Gonzalez, the idiot, 45479. They refused to arrest him. He's there right now, and I've been ousted out of the house with a restraining order.
Thank you, sir.
Right, thank you very much.
Can someone take the complaint, please?
That will end the public comment period. We will now move to agenda item 3, consent agenda items. Sir, we don't have a comment card for you today. Hold on.
I don't have a card on you, sir, today.
Sir, we'll go ahead and step to the podium.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I'd like to speak on agenda item, start with 4G, the police schools. No, there shouldn't be any police schools. LAPD's had a lot of bad lessons where they were training people in forensic sciences, and they used it against us and made a big catastrophe or something. You know, police schools, no. I know there's a lot of training for LAPD. You guys teach a lot of people things, and people come from around the world that want to learn policing. But we don't want them setting up magnet schools, and we don't want any alternate justice systems. I don't want too many LAPD training facilities. They seem to be, they'll generate their own problems. That's not a way to find more work for yourself by generating crazy problems like that. I just wanted to limit that stuff. Agenda item 4B, hiring, making contracts with Metro. Be careful. I don't want any shuffling money around. Metro should use their services. Maybe their security needs a little backup, but LAPD knows where to go to find bad guys. They'll find a lot at Metro. They can learn quite a bit at Metro, but making contracts, nah. Agenda item 4K, retiring horses. Yes. There should be somebody checking on the retired horses that LAPD uses. There should be we need a livestock report. monthly livestock report from LAPD. Horses retired and animals retired, and how many are survived in retirement. There should be somebody checking on them. Horses that serve a long time, you know, they rode them around the park for 15 years. Yeah, okay. That's good. I want LAPD to pay for that. I'm on for that. I'm on for that. I know they're expensive, you know, like $10,000 or something, you know, at a time for care of horses. But there should be somebody from LAPD. I believe there's a place where LAPD should be able to handle their horses in a central location where they can service them and have professionals that know how to handle them. They should be able to send people around to visit those retired horses, to clean them up once in a while or bring them a cookie or whatever. I noticed some political hacking in the city hall that more than one Katie Yaroslavsky was handing out certificates like spycraft. They were showing us the presidents of Slovenia, but I know that those people were from the Turkish military. You know, spycraft, crazy shit in the city hall.
Thank you, sir.
Somebody has to get them.
We will now move on to agenda item number 3, consent agenda items. We have items 3A through K. Are there any comments or concerns on any of those items?
Thank you, President Southers. I would ask that we pull item 3B from the consent agenda because I will be recusing myself from that matter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Calanche? No, thank you. Okay, and Commissioner Garcia?
None, thank you.
Okay. So I move that we adopt the recommendation for board actions for items 3A and 3C through K. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
And I'll step out for the next matter.
Thank you, Vice President. We will now hear item 3B. Are there any comments or questions on item 3B?
None.
No, sir? Mr. Calanche? No questions on item 3B. I would move that we adopt the recommendation for board action for that item. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Someone would let the Vice President know, should come back to the boardroom. Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 4, regular agenda items. Item A, we have a verbal presentation relative to an update on recruitment and hiring. I see Captain Patillo, Chief Reyna. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, President Southers, Vice President Shields, Commissioners Garcia and Calanche, Ms. Yu, Mr. De La Guerra, and Chief Choi. As you said, I'm Robin Patillo with Recruitment and Employment Division. I'm here with Chief Reyna to give a brief update on recruitment and hiring for the department. But I'd like to give a brief overview of the staffing at recruitment and the responsibilities of those staff. The responsibility of providing an eligible list of hireable candidates officially lies with Personnel Department. But over half of my staff have been dedicated to help Personnel Department in that mission. 34 of my personnel already serve a background function. Hiring and evaluation section consists of 8 background investigators and 1 supervisor. They work in concert with Personnel Department background investigators. Each background takes roughly 40 hours to work and investigate, to complete interviews and track down references, and to write the narrative. Some background investigations take longer than others. It may depend on the candidate. 6 background investigation support officers and 1 supervisor. They provide support to the background investigators from both Personnel Department and LAPD. In 2022, Post increased the requirements for the background investigation, including residence checks for the past 10 years and employment checks for the past 7 years. So we added that support level to assist with the backgrounds. There are 8 personal history statement officers, that's known as PHS, and 1 supervisor. The PHS is required by Post. It's approximately 200 questions, It requires an interview. In 2024 year-to-date, my PHS officers have interviewed and reviewed 4,732 PHS submissions. We are equal to what we processed for the entire year of 2023 already. This is the beginning of the candidate's background. A candidate can be disqualified at this point of the process and they may appeal. It's a pain point for many candidates because it requires a lot of information from them. I have additional personnel that facilitate the sworn panels for entry-level interviews. They review disqualifications and they coordinate the hiring and appointment of candidates to each academy class. And additionally, we provide the use of department vehicles and equipment to these tasks. The recruitment section consists of 5 mentors. The mentors will contact candidates that are stuck in the process and offer assistance and encouragement. They hold virtual mentoring seminars, oral interview preparation. They will contact approximately 300 candidates a week. They also run the candidate advancement program to assist candidates with getting physically prepared for the academy. And there are 10 recruiters. The activities of the recruiters include pocket testing, hiring seminars. Currently, there's 2 a month, one at ARTC Academy and one at Davis Academy. They attend job fairs and other events. They go to military bases. Recent events, not exhaustive list, but this past weekend we had a hiring seminar at Algin Sutton Park in Council District 8 along with CSP. And we also traveled to Fort Irwin, the military base, for a recruitment event. The mentor's job is to look for new events and locations and to evaluate. We also have a social media officer who's responsible for the organic posting on our accounts. He's increased the followers to 70,000. We were at 20,000 when we started. Our Instagram account outperforms both the sheriffs and NYPD in their respective accounts. We also run the Associate Community Police Officer Program. These are young people referred from cadets, POPs, and PAMs. There have been 113 since the program inception. There's 28 active. There have been 35 appointed as police officers. This position is subject to the hiring freeze. And there's also an issue with the cost of the background. And we're trying to work that out with personnel department. We also facilitate the Skill Bridge program. And there's 15 active participants in this military internship program. There have been 145 in Skill Bridge since the program inception. 25 have been appointed to LAPD. Now I'd like to discuss some hiring metrics. Year to date, there have been increases in applications, multiple choice tests, personal history statements, and CAP attendance. Year to date, we've hired 338, including the October class, which will start next Monday. The number of backgrounds completed is lower than in prior years. The number of psychological evaluations is lower than in prior years. The number of backgrounds pending, which is what we call Tier 1, is at 325 pending, which is an all-time high. In the fiscal year of 23-24, we've hired 24% female candidates. In the fiscal year 24-25 year-to-date, we've hired 18% female candidates. A brief update on our advertising with the marketing company VGCA. They began their work with us in August. They have toured the department. They continue to meet with officers and supervisors as part of building the strategy. We meet multiple times a week. I anticipate this week they will present their strategy for marketing the LAPD brand to police officer candidates. The strategy will be geared toward maximizing our efforts and maximizing the budget. It is anticipated they will present creative materials to the campaign mid-December. And one more update to the department's proposal to assume responsibility for all background investigations. I, along with Chief Reyna and Commander Pinto, met with the union representatives from the background investigators who had some concerns. We're working to negotiate and come to an agreement. The position of personnel department and the background investigators union is that they are understaffed for both investigators and clerical support, which is what the department has been saying. The personnel department budget was cut for these positions, and my understanding is they're working on a new budget request. And And I am prepared to answer any questions you may have.
And if I could just add some numbers, I know Captain Patil touched on things have increased. So incredible work done by Recruitment Employment Division, recruiters and mentors. Just to give you an idea, for applications from 2022 to 2024, current year to date, applications are up 53%. Multiple choice tests are up 48%. Personal history statements are up 56%. The candidate advancement program participation is up 150%. Department interviews are up 40%. Physical fitness qualifiers up 85%. Polygraph examinations are up 90%. However, when you look at backgrounds, they're down 10%. Psychological evaluations are down 9%, and overall hiring's down 8%. So you can see on the front end, all the work that Red and the staff are doing to, in a sense, get people in the door, get that application going, get that process going. But as we've discussed before, it's getting into the backgrounds. We feel that's the bottleneck overall in the process.
Okay, thank you, Captain. Thank you, Chief. And again, I want to applaud the efforts of your unit. As you know, I usually come out to ARTC as often as I can and work with you on your Wednesday meetings, and I appreciate all the effort going into it. I know the number of people that come and take these tests. I'm there when they take those tests. So appreciate the work that you're doing. Just a couple of questions. I know Algin Sutton had over 200 people who registered last week. How many actually showed up? Can you tell me?
There were 66 testers.
Okay, that's interesting, because I know they had over 200 registered.
I've been told by the personnel department, which has been doing this for a long time, that generally it's 1/3 of the RSVPs.
Okay, thank you. A couple of other questions on POPs. So we've had 35 people accepted. I went to their first graduation last year. Is there a reason why we didn't have more? Did they go to other agencies? Did they decide to not pursue a career in law enforcement? I'm just trying to find out what happened to some of those graduates.
Regarding the ACOP, sir?
POPs, in the POP
POPs.
program?
I don't have the data on POPs.
Okay. If you could just look into it, just kind of curious to see where they went.
Did you, just to, on that point, did you mention something about getting a background check paid for? Is that connected to that?
It is. It's connected to the ACOP program. The ACOP program is a 5-year program, and it's when someone is 18. So it was meant to bridge between cadets, POPs, and PAMs. But the requirement is that the candidate, when they are 20 and a half, they must apply as a police officer, and there's no other option for them. So we would only want to hire someone that can pass a police background. So what we've been doing is giving them police backgrounds upon hire as an ACOP, and then having you do another police background when they apply as a police officer. I think that now that there's a pause in the hiring for ACOP, I think that this is our chance to take a look at the program to see how we can rework it and potentially make it a little less rigid. And there's a lot of good candidates in there that are good for city and department employment. It may not necessarily be police officer solely focused. And again, 18 is very young to decide what you want to do with your life at this point in time.
Thank you. The last question I have is, again, about SkillBridge. What branch of the service are we having more success with of the 25 people who were appointed from that program, if you know?
I don't have that data. I know that the majority of our applicants have been the Marine Corps,
Okay.
because our initial MOA was with the Marine Corps.
Okay.
But I will get you more information regarding the appointed. And I also understand other departments have caught on to the SkillBridge, and San Diego has recently started a like program.
Okay, especially with Pendleton being right down the freeway, that's a little more convenient for them. Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. All right, those are all the questions I have. I'd be curious again to understand and stay in touch with the negotiations that are going on regarding backgrounds. It's obvious, based on the chief's report, with the number of percentages we've increased in terms on the front end, we're decreasing on the back end, and that's where we're obviously losing people, and we've got to figure that out. So if there's any way that we can help, please let us know.
Thank you.
Vice President Shields.
Thank you. And always love to hear that our Instagram is outperforming the sheriffs and NYPD. Great to hear. But I will say, the social media presence is kind of noticeable. I think the Join LAPD posts are helpful. So, really commend your team for doing that. One of my questions I think was actually partially answered because I was going to ask whether there was something similar to the Skill Bridge program for any of the cadets that graduate and age out of that program, and how do we keep them engaged until they qualify to be law enforcement. And so the ACOP program sounds like a potential fix for that, but I think, as you mentioned, there needs to be some fixes. I don't see how that program can suffer from the same problems of the background check and also delay the hiring of officers. They would basically be in the same bottleneck. So I do think that needs to be reexamined and determine what exactly is needed, for them to join on, because I do think you lose people once they age out of the cadet program, that if you kept them engaged with the city in some fashion, they may be more likely to apply. So welcome any changes to that program or a different program that can really bridge that gap. But from what you were telling me and from what the statistics seem, it seems like we don't have a recruiting problem as much as we have a hiring problem. And those are two different things, given the number of applications are on the rise. And so oftentimes we hear, people are just not interested in being police officers anymore. And I think that's a false narrative. And so I think that indicating that there are people who are interested in joining the LAPD, but they are sometimes diverted to other agencies because of how long the process in Los Angeles takes. That should be a problem that we fix as soon as possible. I had a question about the personal statement. That is something that's required by post, is that right? And it's like
Yes.
200 questions?
Yes, it's 33 pages, yes.
And so is that going to be the same questions that every agency in California asks? There's no alteration to that?
No alteration, it's standardized.
Okay. And do we know, how many people get disqualified from those types of questions?
It's generally 70%. I'm sorry, 70% pass, 30% disqualify. And then among the disqualifications, those could be a shorter term disqualification, such as, a 1-year soft deny because there's maybe something in their background that, if given a little time, could allow them to join the process again. So there's a little flex in there.
And do the post requirements identify which are passing versus non-passing grading, or is that something that the department decides?
The post requirements are very broad as far as the dimensions of what is qualifies for a police officer, and then the department, along with personnel department, have a set book of guidelines, and those guidelines allow us to look at each candidate. I mean, there's so many dimensions, so it is mostly post, but partially the department and the City of LA Personnel Department. And the last time that book of guidelines was updated was the beginning of 2023, so it's fairly current.
That's good to know that it's a current thing, so that it could continue to be a iterative process. We obviously want people who join for the right reason and are here to serve the public, and also it will continue on through the program. The one thing I will note is that I know the U.S. Department of Justice has been pretty active in this area and suing different law enforcement law enforcement departments that may have different criteria that desperately impact women or persons of color. And so I just want to make sure that the department is doing everything it can throughout the whole process to say, are there people being disqualified for a legitimate or non-legitimate reason?
If we could add on that PHS, if someone is on the front end looking like they're gonna be disqualified, there is a discussion. It's not just one person who's reviewing a supervisor who makes that decision, we're not aware. So that's brought to the attention of the supervision, to Captain Patil, has that discussion with personnel. So before someone is disqualified because of the PHS on the front end, there is a robust discussion about that person. And then matching what the issues are compared to the guidelines, and then deciding whether they move forward or not.
And in answer to your question regarding if there's any bias in the disqualification process, we're always self-assessing and checking to see if we have, like too many of one type of candidate being disqualified, and then we have to look at why.
Yeah, and again, there might be legitimate reasons to disqualify, but it's asking that question of like, is this a true legitimate requirement or something that might be more subjective, in which case it's improperly impacting certain individuals. Given the all-time high number of pending applications of I think 325, I understand that there's ongoing negotiations and discussions for the process generally. Is there any attempt at trying to get through those applications in a faster way, whether it's outsourcing or seeing what other departments are doing to get through those background checks?
At this point in time, the control on how those backgrounds are assigned and in what order they're worked is outside of my purview. It belongs to the personnel department. I only have the ability to monitor how many backgrounds my 8 background investigators conduct and how many they finish. The background personnel in personnel department the number of investigators has flexed. We were told recently it was as high as 30, but I know in the past it's been as low as 18, including part-time investigators. I also know they moved some investigators over from the fire department to the police side. So they may not be at full strength. They may have to learn the police background process first. So there's a lot of moving parts. But as far as I think everyone can agree that we do need to add resources, it doesn't really matter. And I do plan on bringing in more candidates at the top end of the funnel, but we do need to add resources and assets in the middle of the funnel so we can get people through this process.
Thank you. Thank you. And Chief, if there's anything that we can do, I know you've been working with the personnel department, but I don't think we can emphasize enough how significant a priority this is for the board, for the public, for the mayor, and for everyone involved.
Absolutely. There are ongoing discussions on how to expedite those tier 1 candidates, as well as get rid of the backlog in the process. So that's with the mayor's office as well as personnel department.
And with VGCA on board, and obviously the contract that was approved and hundreds of thousands of dollars, these are efforts of recruitment staff and roughly a budget right now, probably $150,000 in marketing and advertising. Now you're going to move to VGCA, who's going to do a very, very robust outward-facing marketing and advertising with hundreds of thousands of dollars, which we are hoping on the front end is going to increase those numbers even more. So there's even more concerned about that middle part, that bottleneck of addressing that, because we can bring them in the front end and then we're going to lose them in the middle. So we really have to work with personnel to get this straightened out.
Thank you. Commissioner Kalanche.
Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work. I've attended a few of the committee meetings where everybody's troubleshooting with the mayor's office. So thank you for keeping your eye on the ball. Just a couple of follow-up questions. Just for clarity, we have on our end, or on our side, we have 8 investigators, and then personnel has investigators. So are they doing different backgrounds, or what's the difference between the investigators?
No difference. They all receive the same training, and they're all basically pitching into the same pile of work. But in the end, it's almost as if my background investigators are in loan to personnel department, because personnel department has the responsibility of all those backgrounds.
So then the goal is to bring them all over to LAPD instead of personnel? Is that what's being negotiated right now?
Initially, that was an idea that was floated. I think there's some concerns on the labor side, and understandably, the department has concerns on how
I'm sorry. So these are actually labor negotiations. So
Got it.
I don't want to really talk about it here publicly, but I will tell you that Personnel Department, the Mayor's Office, and this department are all committed to decreasing the backlog and increasing throughput, whether it's through backgrounds or psych or medical. We're looking at all those different steps in the process, all 7 steps. But specifically the background issue, I don't want to talk about publicly because there's a negotiation going on.
Okay, without telling me any of their concerns or any labor issues, there is we do have investigators that are employed by LAPD
Yes,
that are on loan to
yes.
personnel.
And we have an MOA with personnel, so they are, they are aware that we were agreeing to supply 8 investigators sometime in the past, some years in the past.
And they're doing the same thing that the investigators.
Yes,
Person.
identical, yes. And then the background support, they help everybody. They help personnel background investigators, they help LAPD background, as if there are one unit and in one mission. Personal history statement officers, that used to be a function that used to be done by personnel department. We took that off their hands. And when if there's a backlog or there was a software issue, we work all weekend to get caught up. And we were very successful in that. But it's a crucial part of the process. But it's a background function, and we do put in a lot of labor.
So it is your belief or the department's belief that if those investigators were under LAPD purview, we would become more efficient in getting that through that backlog? Because it's the same number of investigators.
I think it's just the 2 departments have different philosophies in the way that employees are.
Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. A couple of follow-up questions. The ACOP, how many do we currently have?
28 active, ma'am.
28 active. And many of these come from former cadets.
I can get that information. I would be almost sure that the answer would be yes.
Okay, and what would be like our capacity? We have 28 active. What would be our current capacity, and who oversees them?
The capacity was 50. I don't know if we've ever had 50. The hiring, not all applicants will qualify to get hired. And again, if we made some changes in the bulletin for the job, I think we could shift that.
And they're full-time?
No, they're part-time, no more than, I think it's, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the time. It's definitely a part-time position.
So it has to be under 20 hours?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are all on loan to a geographic area where they work different positions with detectives, with patrol. They get exposed to ride-alongs, training, different functions. And Red sort of acts like the mothership for the ACOP program. So if there's an issue or with the employee, then we consult with the geographic area and how to remedy the issue. And then sometimes they will come to us and say, look, I've changed my mind. I don't want to be a police officer anymore. And then we counsel them and discuss their options, and either push them toward other city employment. And some of them just say, I want to finish my college education. And that's one flaw in the program. We're accepting college students, and then we're saying you must apply at 20 and a half to be a police officer. So there's a conflict. And I wouldn't blame someone who wanted to finish their education first.
I mean, I don't necessarily see a conflict because I would want police officers to have college degrees.
I think it's just it's rigorous to apply, and then if one was to get into the academy, they'd most certainly have to stop their education at that time to get through the academy. I don't think they'd be able to do both.
If they're going for a 4-year degree,
four-year
so
degree,
they'd be
yeah.
22 when they graduate from college, but we're making them apply for LAPD 20 and a half, so they're conflicted. They're applying and going to school at the same time, and can they handle both? So
And we make them apply at 21, or they can't wait till they finish college?
That was how the job bulletin was written, I think maybe back to 2017.
Gosh, this is such a great opportunity for former cadets or anybody that's interested even in civilian position with the LAPD.
Yeah, Commissioner, I absolutely agree. There are ways that we can work to readdress that bulletin so people can still be an ACOP until they're done with college. But if that effort hasn't been taken and we identify that as a barrier, then we should address that.
I would love to work with you on this, Captain. There is the mayor's office also has a workforce development program. I think there's various opportunities to work with other initiatives in the city. So I would love to sit down, just map that out.
I agree, and thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, that would be great. I think, let me see. Oh, yeah, my last question is around the PHS. Since it's for the most part, a post requirement, so this is like a systemic issue that LAPD is not going to address, but just to help me understand. So if I do the PHS with LAPD and then I apply, say, to San Diego PD, do I have to do the PHS again? For
Yes.
that department?
Yes. And I don't know what other departments use, but we have a portal called MyPD. So you're inputting the information directly into MyPD, and there's probably one chance for you to save the information before you submit it. At that point in time, it's not something that I don't believe you'd be able to save and then transmit to another department.
Okay. Now, I'm just thinking for like California, since there seems to be like a recruitment revamp kind of effort in California or maybe across the country, it would be great to have some sort of portal where you could do your PHS once. If it's a post requirement and that could be shared like with, multiple departments. I don't know. It's just a thought. Because if I already applied at one, but I still want to do LAPD, and then I see like I have to do these questions all over again, I'd probably not do it. But that's a post issue, I guess. So
We just want to deter others from just applying to LAPD in a string of everyone else, though. So that's going to be the balance, I think, of we don't want to make it too easy for them to just take our application and go to someone that's going to go faster.
But I mean, there's other things that we have to do.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking like they're going to do even if they copied the PHS to another department, there's still so many things that they have to go through. I'm just thinking, if I was a person wanting to be a police officer in California and knew like, okay, I want to apply to this department and maybe a few others, I'd probably like just do one just because I didn't want to do these are 21-year-olds.
I do have my personal history statement from when I applied in 1997. I kept a copy. So I think they are able to do the same, and then it would just be the same data entry for them.
Commissioner, make a good point. I think it's 6 one way, half dozen another, where you could have a standard PHS for the state, which allow them to move around. But as Commissioner Shields said, it also, if another agency's moving faster in a background and they say, well, you already did your PHS, thanks, and they move forward and they grab
Well, not
that
ours.
person
I'm thinking a state
Well,
PHS.
meaning if they don't have to do it again.
Like you do one for the state, and then you decide which departments you're going to apply, kind of like doing your SATs, right? The department's still going to have to evaluate you, but I'm thinking for efficiency's sake for the state. I'm not talking about LAPD, because then once you get their PHS, you're still going to have your own evaluation criteria, right, per department. And shame on us for being slow, right? No, just kidding. But no, I just think that I'm thinking statewide for post. If these are very, very similar, like why make applicants go through this process many times? But maybe that's a esoteric kind of question that we won't be able to solve here. So, but anyways, that was just my question about the post requirements.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia.
Just a quick question, potentially. I'm curious to understand what the outcomes are for the investigators that are within the department versus within personnel in terms of like their speediness, their percentages of getting through the process faster.
A comparison between us and personnel?
And Commissioner, may I clarify, were you looking at the number of investigations completed, pass, fail, hard deny, soft deny, all of that? I don't have that with me. I think also we must acknowledge that the backgrounds are not assigned by me. They're assigned by someone from personnel department who may have insight as to the depth of each background prior to the actual investigation starting. And some of them can be very complex. So I have investigators that find themselves checking with 10 different police departments because the person has an application in with 10 different police departments. So that will add time. Someone who has lived abroad or in multiple states, someone who's had multiple
Captain Patillo,
residences.
I thought we did an analysis just on average, our 8 investigators over a period of time, on average, how many background investigators are they completing each DP versus investigators at personnel department? Did we ever do that? I thought we had some rough numbers.
I do analysis, and we're always looking at our background investigators, but they're heavily managed. So there's expectations set, and then we have to ensure that they meet the expectations.
So what was that number on average?
Well, it's the minimum of 4 passing, but that can get complicated if you're given a bunch of backgrounds that are not passing. So there's a limit to how many somebody can complete in a month. There's just only so many hours in the day. It's a sort of it's a complex question, but I can assure you that my background investigators are very heavily monitored.
Does that equate to efficient?
If they are not efficient, we look at why and we give them assistance in efficiency.
Yeah, thank you.
So again, thank you for the report. I'd just like to follow up on Commissioner Garcia's comment. So I think I heard someone mention Tier 1. What would make a person an applicant a Tier 1 applicant?
All of their test parts are current, nothing set to expire. There's no issues with, their right to work in the United States. And they've passed everything up until the background. And there's nothing glaring that would say that this person's going to be disqualified or removed from the process.
So having heard that, and excuse me for falling back on what I do outside of here, we've talked about this before. This, to me, is very akin to a university admissions process. It would seem to me that if we have a Tier 1 applicant, we could say to a Tier 1 applicant that we're going to say yes or maybe in 30 days. And having said that, although we can't make a legal commitment, they could make a verbal commitment to come here and wait those 30 days before they go elsewhere. Is that something, when we can talk about this later, but what I'm hearing are people that we would consider Tier 1, and then all of a sudden they don't hear anything for months, and they go elsewhere. I'm thinking, why don't we identify the Tier 1s, move them to backgrounds first, ahead of the other Tier 2 and 3, if that does exist, and prioritize them and say, you're going to hear from us in 30 days or 60 days. If you don't, you're a free agent.
If I
Is
may,
it
Commissioner-
is it harder than I'm making it? Go
It's
ahead.
not harder, that's the philosophical difference between the LAPD and Personnel Department when it comes to Tier 1 candidates in the system. And again, we control that. Personnel Department controls the assignment, they control the books in a sense. We are just supporting on the side, hence the issues with this ongoing negotiation of dealing with the background process, because there are great ideas that we have that we're trying to implement or work around to make this more efficient and a quicker process.
Also, just know that what you're saying, that request has been made to personnel department by LAPD. So
So is it fair to say that we're still using first come, first serve, no matter who they are? Oh, never mind.
Yes,
Then first out, yes.
yes, yes.
Understood.
Yes, and we've, for an example, we've brought it to personnel department's attention, a 22-year-old who lives at home, one job, college degree.
Got
never
it.
Been arrested, but waits in the back of the line, in a sense, their turn, when that should be an easy process to get somebody in.
Understood. Well, again, thank you for your efforts. Thank you for the report. I'd like to bring you back in another 90 days to see where we are, if there's any progress, any improvements. The numbers are outstanding. We go to those hiring mixers, and there's no, as the Vice President said, we don't have a recruiting problem. So thank you and your staff for everything that you're doing, because it's obviously working, because people are showing up. They do want to apply to the Los Angeles Police Department, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll now move on to agenda item 4B, the department's report relative to the California Assembly Bill 481 Annual Equipment Report. Use of equipment covered by Assembly Bill 481 revised in inventory, procurement, and use of military equipment. Captain, Commander?
Good morning, President Southers, Commissioners. Got a little bit of an entourage today with me. I know this is of great interest to the board, great interest to the community, and it's great interest to the department as well. So I brought a little backup with me today. So again, I'm Commander Shufatelli from the Office of Constitutional Policing and Policy. With me today are Captain Ben Fernandez of Metropolitan Division, Captain Mario Moda from Emergency Services Division, Captain James Wang from Training Division, and also available for any questions afterwards is Commander Craig Valenzuela from Traffic Group. I'm presenting to you today the department's third annual AB 481 Military Equipment Report. We're asking that you review the report, approve it, transmit it to City Council, and ask that City Council renew Ordinance 187603, which was originally enacted in 2022, and will put us in compliance with our annual requirements for AB 481. Additionally, as this is the third iteration of the department's military equipment report, we continue to shape and refine our AB 481 reporting processes in order to ensure greater transparency as well as greater efficiency in the process. We're asking that you approve some updates to our inventory, procurement, and use form, which is Form 1562. These updated sections reflect some of the additional information that we're gathering and including in the report, such as greater breakdown in costs and number of uses per item. And that will greatly assist Audit Division in crafting this report. Finally, we're requesting to revise some language in the relevant manual section. A companion bill to AB 481 was passed this last September. It changed some of the language of the bill in the government code. It dropped some of the manufacturer's terms to more generic language, and we're just mirroring the new language. So that's the manual revision section that we're requesting. Additionally, we've added a section that provides some instruction to commanding officers and entities that are requesting an item mid-year. So we've included some instructions in that section as well. Those are our manual revision requests. During the past 2 years of crafting and presenting the military equipment report, we've received a great deal of input from a variety of sources and have made several adjustments to the report in an effort to make it more transparent, digestible, and user-friendly. The 2023 report has been updated to include more information, including the number of uses for each item, a more detailed breakdown of the cost information, which department entity controls the reporting of each item, some updated and improved information pertaining to the complaint process, and a glossary of acronyms to make the report easier for readers to understand. As with all past year's reports, this year's report was reviewed by the City Attorney's Office. They agreed to its form, approved of its form, and compliance with law. This report is a compilation of great effort. It involves multiple entities within the department. It's compiled over the course of months. We have to wait basically for the use of force end-of-year use of force review report to be compiled. We use a lot of data from them. We collaborate with internal affairs, and we collaborate with a lot of entities. I'd like to thank the City Attorney's Office. Just take a brief minute to thank the people who are involved in this large report. The City Attorney's Office Detective Hector Sanchez of Audit Division, Sergeant Michelle Smith of OCPP, Metropolitan Division, Emergency Services Division, Training Division, Detective Bureau, Internal Affairs, Traffic Group, and Motor Transport Division, as well as CIRD. As a recap, this legislation was enacted in September of 2021 when Governor Newsom signed AB 481 into law. It designated certain vehicles, tools, weapons systems, and ammunition as military, quote, military equipment. It required that every law enforcement agency in the state establish a policy regarding the use of these identified items of equipment, to have this policy adopted by ordinance, and subsequently to complete an annual report on the inventory of such items. The requirements for the annual report are that it itemize all military equipment in the department's inventory, that it document the uses of this equipment, that it provide a summary of complaints associated with this use, results of any audits, annual costs, and new equipment items being sought. When the law initially passed, the department, as required, enacted a military equipment policy. It also created Form 1562, the Inventory, Procurement, and Use of Military Equipment form. This form is disseminated department-wide to all entities seeking an item listed as military equipment. Audit Division was tasked with collecting these forms and working with all relevant department entities to complete the annual report. Although many items of equipment listed in this report are very specialized in nature and used by specialized units such as our MSIT team, SWAT, bomb squad, many other items are routine pieces of equipment utilized by our patrol officers on a daily basis. Some of these include the command post vehicles, beanbag shotguns, and 40mm less lethal launchers. In addition to bulk ordered items that you'll see on the report, such as ammunition, less lethal ammunition, tear gas canisters, etc., a small number of new items were acquired in 2023 that are of note. They were a DJI M30T small unmanned aerial system or drone, 104 Geisel carbine 5.56 rifles, and of course the Boston Dynamics Spot robot. There was a small error identified prior to this presentation that I'd like to bring to your attention. We had a DJI Avata SUSA drone included as a new item. It's actually been requested but not yet purchased, and it's properly located on Addenda 6 for requested items. It is important to note, and I cannot say it enough, that most items in this report are standard police equipment, and they do not come from the military, although they have been designated as military equipment. Additionally, the mere possession of the item of equipment does not necessitate its use. The use of essential equipment items is predicated on situational necessity, and our preferred outcome remains de-escalation of volatile incidents and peaceful resolution. Several items have been decommissioned since our last reporting period and have been removed from our AB 481 inventory. These items include 4 unmanned aerial systems which age out and 706 Colt M16 rifles that were returned to the federal government. AB 481 also requires the reporting of any complaints and use or misuse of AB 481 defined equipment. There were 37 total complaints received and investigated by the department in some manner that was affiliated with AB 481 equipment. 17 were initiated in conjunction with a claim for damages or litigation. 15 were public complaints, 1 was department initiated, and 4 were duplicate complaints. 10 are still pending investigation. 17 have been found to either be unfounded, demonstrably false, exonerated, or determined to not be misconduct. 2 were dispositioned via the alternative complaint resolution process. 3 had insufficient evidence to adjudicate. 4, as I mentioned earlier, were duplicate complaints, and 1 was sustained. The sustained complaint resulted from the use of a 40mm less lethal launcher. It was determined that the officer violated the firearm safety rules by keeping his or her finger on the trigger. The complaint was sustained, and this one incident was listed in our report as the sole incident of misuse of AB 481 equipment this year, last year. AB 481 defined firearms were utilized in 3 categorical use of force incidences. These were rifles that were used in officer-involved shootings. Less lethal AB 481 weapon systems such as beanbag shotguns and 40mm less lethal launchers were used 16 times in categorical uses of force. Oftentimes in conjunction with the shooting, there will be a use of less lethal force. 39 less lethal rounds were fired in these incidents. There were 91 times in non-categorical use of force that less lethal AB1 weapons were used. 168 less lethal rounds were fired during these incidents. AB 481 also directs that the annual report should report the results of any internal audits or information about violations of military equipment use policy and any actions taken in response. No internal audits were conducted, nor any violations of the policy noted. Other required items in the annual report are, of course, the costs, which in this year's report contains a more detailed breakdown of acquisition costs, operational costs, and total annual cost. The cost related to acquiring, storing, and maintaining AB 481 related equipment for 2023 was actually down from the previous year and is roughly $1.5 million. The acquisitions for new requests will exceed that. We're requesting for some new vehicles that have aged out, and they're a little more expensive items. The funding for the acquisition and maintenance of AB 481 items do not come just from the city's general fund. They come from a variety of sources, including grants, the police commission, as well as private purchase. Finally, the report also should contain all new items that are requested for use, and those items are included in the report in Addenda 6. I wanted to briefly, while I was listening to public comment, address one of the callers' concerns about AB 488 and whether the department is in compliance. We do attach policy documents to the annual report. AB 488, the department is in full compliance with the AB 488. I wanted to assure the board of that. The bill went into effect in January of 2022. An OCOP notice was issued on December 14th, 2021 with the new dictates of the law. It is a policy document. We are readdressing the crowd control document, and it is in process right now with our policy unit. And it concludes my brief presentation of this very important report. I brought my subject matter experts for any questions that you may have for us now.
Okay, thank you, Commander. Very comprehensive and inclusive report. I just have a couple of questions related to table number 3, which starts, I believe, on page 21, summary of complaints regarding AB 481. And if we could, I have 2 questions. On item number 5, involving less lethal munition, where the public complained that the officer carried a green shotgun that could potentially traumatize youth in the incident area. Can you explain that? What I'm thinking about are the ones we use as decoy weapons, or?
Well, no, that would be a beanbag shotgun.
Beanbag shotgun,
Which is a regulated AB 481 piece of equipment, and therefore I was classified correctly. So that complaint was disposed as an alternative complaint resolution, and it came to a successful disposition when it was explained to the complainant.
Okay, thank you. The next one is 2 items down, item number 7, a directed energy weapon. Can you explain what that is, please?
It's something we don't have, sir.
I didn't think so. I was trying to understand.
Right, we will accept complaints from members of the public regardless of whether it's something that we do or do not have. We will investigate it. If we did have a directed energy weapon, it would be included as an AB 481 item. Therefore, we did include it in the list of complaints. However, that was adjudicated as no misconduct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Those are the only questions I have. Vice President Shields.
Thank you. I know we did receive some pretty thoughtful written public comments, and one major comment was just that the length of the report and the short turnaround for the public to be able to review it and for the commission to be able to review it in anticipation. Thank you for the additional context as to why it takes that you're waiting on some additional reports that are necessary, and why it's not like we could just ask you get it to us by July, because you wouldn't have all of the information necessary to complete the document. And it does look like a very thorough report. One of the major questions I had, and I was going to ask you to come back, was the issue that some of the written comment we received indicated that that the report or some of our policies were not updated accordance to state law. So I was going to ask you to go check with the city attorney's office and confirm that this is consistent with state law. So is it accurate that you believe everything that is being submitted here is consistent with state law?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
And that's based on the city attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And one question I had relating to the Appendix 6 with requested equipment. Are these things, given that we are late in the year of 2024, and this is a report requesting requesting equipment for 2024, are these things that the department already has obtained, or are these things that the department has potentially secured some funding for but has not yet possessed?
That is correct, ma'am. They, on these items, large items especially, we probably have maintained the funding for it, whether it comes from the foundation grant or general funds. Being included in here means this is what we want to get. So we have not obtained these systems or items yet. Well, that's why we have included that new updated manual language as well. It gives the opportunity for entities to come directly to you mid-year if a crucial piece of equipment can't wait for this report to come out, this annual report to come out. We've given them some direction to come directly to you and get approval for that item mid-year. It would then be included once we obtain it. If we obtain it at the deadline prior to making, there is possible there would be some overlap if something was mid-year approved by you. It may still show on the wish list rather than the inventory list just based on the timing of the report being completed. However, these items have not been obtained.
Thank you. And just a couple of questions about some, and again, and I will like to thank the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles for providing written questions, and also, we received some others as well, including the public comment. I did have some questions about just the general way in which certain equipment is used or not used, and particularly relating to scattershot munitions, taser shockwaves, and skip firing munitions. So is someone prepared to kind of just generally talk to us a little bit about why that equipment is necessary?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Vice President Shields, President Southers, and other commissioners, Chief Choi, and everyone else here in attendance. I'm Captain Mario Mota with ESD. My previous assignment was as the commanding officer of Metropolitan Division. So in that role, I was present at many incidents where we actually used the Stingray, which is one of the items that you mentioned, the Shockwave, and other items. So ultimately, starting off with the Shockwave. Currently, Metropolitan Division has 3 of those items in its inventory. Some of them are not operational, so we're actually only using one right now, which is the 2-bank with 6 tasers per row. And that is used specifically really only on barricaded suspects, at barricaded suspects per the barricaded training bulletin, okay? It's used specifically, another name for it is an aerial denial, right? So it's used in conjunction with other SWAT equipment and tools that are used to direct and influence the suspect to go a specific direction. And then it's also used, it winds up being an intermediate force option, right? So ultimately, once you induce the suspect to exit, come out, you're directing that suspect in a certain direction, and you use this as another layer of a less lethal to reduce the risk of encountering and using deadly force. But it's basically used as a regular taser, like a Taser 7, Taser 10. You get no additional voltage from the 6 banks. It's basically the same voltage as one cartridge fired from a patrol officer's taser. And it's used for NMI, neuromuscular incapacitation. So that's the Shockwave. In the last, I could honestly tell you that in 23, during this report, it was deployed several times during barricaded incidents, but not actually used. Our first use is going to be reported next year in 2024, and that's the first time we've actually used it, maybe in 3 or 4 years. Moving on to the Stinger grenades or the Hornet grenades, which is another name. Same thing. Oh, and then going back to the Shockwave, the policy that governs it is just like the Taser policy, right? For SWAT, Metropolitan Division, there's an extraordinary equipment log. that's been approved by the Chief of Police, by the Commanding Officer of Counterterrorism Special Operations Bureau. And all of that specialized equipment also goes through the Tactics Training and Review Committee before it's approved, right? And that, the Shockwave has been in the inventory since 2009 or 2010. Moving on to the Stinger grenades, which was a question by the League of Women Voters. That, again, is another item that's been used by Metropolitan Division, the SWAT team, for many years, meaning it's been in its inventory, rarely, seldom used. The last time that it was actually used one time in 2023 during a barricaded suspect situation, and 99.9% of the time, it's only going to be used during a barricaded suspect situation when the suspect is in a confined space, unsafe to approach, armed, and only as a last resort, meaning that we've already done other layers of intermediate force options, including introduction of other chemical agents and less lethal impact devices, and the suspect is still unsafe to approach, is in a confined space, then we would deploy the Stinger grenade in the presence of that individual. So it is a target specific, although it launches several rubber bullets in a 360 degrees radius, but that's why it needs to be a confined space, right? Because we don't want to injure other bystanders or officers for that matter. So it's used very seldom. Again, that's been in the inventory for many, many years, maybe a couple of decades, and it's used specifically for barricaded suspects. It has been used before in the past, most recently in 2020 with the COP approval and the mayor's approval during a crowd control situation during the 2020 demonstrations. And again, that was a COP request through the Board of Police Commissioners at the time, through the mayor's office, and approved only in the deployment, to be deployed in the presence of the chief at the time. But that was an extraordinary, rare situation that officers were faced with great bodily injury risk and the risk to life, and it was deployed at that time. And prior to that, we would have to go back to the DNC 2000 for that. So it's very seldom used. Again, 99.9% of the time, it will be used for a barricaded suspect. And then the other, what was the third equipment? We had the Stinger, the Shockwave, and there's a 37 millimeter? Which one? 37. And the 37 millimeter? So the 37 millimeter, that's a, it's a non-direct target specific munition. It's a foam round. It's a single cartridge, and inside that cartridge, there's foam round of 5 foam projectiles that are used, and typically that will be used in a crowd control situation. But when I mean that it's a non-direct target specific, it's that it's never been taught. We've never been trained. The department's never been trained to use that as a crowd control device. It's always used once you've identified suspects that are posing a serious risk to the officers and others, right? And if that risk is not addressed, it could lead to the potential escalate to the use of deadly force. Then and only then is that round used as the skip round in front of those individuals that are causing that harm or that danger to the officers or others. So it is used in a crowd control with incident commander approval, and officers are trained in that, and we're constantly, as a department, we're constantly going through training. Most recently, through Metropolitan Division, there's a squad that teaches officers basically 5 days a week, and we go through critical thinking force options, crowd control mobile field force, and less lethal advance for crowd control, where we reiterate the deployment criteria. We talk about Penal Code Section 13652, AB 488, and we go over all of those mandates and deployment criteria for that. So we just don't indiscriminately fire those at a crowd or deploy it at that. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, thank you. That does answer my questions. And it sounds like there are specific policies in place, procedures, manuals that are being adhered to, and that they're primarily, a lot of these are more of the barricaded suspect situation. You're not having officers on patrol with the shockwave or anything like that. And so it is a much more controlled environment and used in very specific situations. And Commander, thank you very, very much for this very thorough presentation. Can you talk a little bit more about just what the process is after this commission meeting? Because I do think, given the presentation, I am prepared to move forward with this today if the other commissioners are. But just wanted to hear what will happen after the commission.
Yes, ma'am. So we're in a unique position, obviously, with City of Los Angeles. A, we have a huge inventory to deal with that a lot of entities don't have. And B, we have a Board of Police Commissions. So we have to bifurcate our approval process. So you cannot pass an ordinance, but you can approve our report. So I will take the approved report across the street, likely to Public Safety Committee prior to the full City Council. And their job is to basically reenact the ordinance, because the law requires an ordinance to be in effect at all times, and it's an annual request. So at this time, if it's voted on and approved, which I would hope it would be, we'll take it across the street. I will get on the calendar with Public Safety Commission, or it will go directly to City Council, and we will get it approved at that point. In the meantime, since the report was published, and I am hesitant to publish a report to the public and then deal with the public prior to dealing with you, my preference is to, in this venue, which is also a public meeting, present it. I do intend, for best practices purposes, to schedule a public engagement meeting at the most convenient time, hopefully Zoom, so that we can get the most full involvement with the community within the next 30 days on this report, so that anyone that has questions about individual pieces of equipment or a policy or concerns, my team of experts will be ready to address it.
And I would encourage, I do think, some of the public comments that we had of this just being a very short time for them to consider and them wanting to be involved in the process, I would encourage you to try to get that other community meeting on the books even in advance of full city council votes, so that you have the benefit of that in advance of that.
Absolutely.
But those are all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Shields. Commissioner Garcia.
The recommendation that Commissioner Shields just gave, is that realistic and doable? Because I think for me, that'll
Yes.
guide whether I'm ready to go
Absolutely.
and say, yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Calanche.
I just have one question. Thank you for the report. The private purchase items, these are you could
They're
tell me what
rifles.
they are before.
They're rifles. Our rifle cadre, and Captain Wang's my expert, he can speak to it a little further, but our rifle cadre went away from borrowed weapons from the federal, which, we feel that obviously an officer is going to maintain their weapon better. They're going to be more accountable for it, and quite frankly, it's more cost effective. So we have moved towards a private purchase program for our patrol rifle cadre.
And what is the process for vetting the weapon, vetting folks?
Good evening. Good morning. Captain James Wang, Assistant Commanding Officer of Training Division. Thank you very much for this opportunity to address the Board of Police Commissioners and answer the question. The first question you asked about was the weapons. So we have a very robust testing and evaluation program. The weapons, as you know, there's many manufacturers for similar type weapons of this one. The original weapon we had in the cadre was quite a few decades back, was the M16, which we borrowed from federal government. That system is still pretty much the standard type of weapon system we're looking at, but there are many manufacturers that produce that type of equipment, and there's also much equipment over the years of technology that can be attached to that weapon to make it more efficient, more accurate. So what Training Division does in working with Training Bureau, also we do have a section that handles equipment for the department as a whole. We have testing processes that we look at for evaluation of those systems, make sure that they comport to department standards and requirements, our specific type of usage and deployment in the city of Los Angeles, and the type of missions that our officers would be working with. So we have a very robust system. So we do maintain a list of authorized equipment with weapons and what you'll see in the list here, the large section under firearms and ammunition, the individual private purchase weapons are listed by make and model. And that's how we control the quality assurance of the weapon and its appropriateness. Looking in terms of the officers, so we have the patrol rifle cadre. Those officers are selected by looking at their backgrounds, the maturity, their dedication to understanding of use of force, their adherence to our department policies and procedures, and then they're taken through their training program. As we have phased out the weapons that we've borrowed from the federal government, as we have gone to prior purchase, if there's still an active status in the cadre, they've maintained their certification, which is also includes skill sets, use of force, de-escalation, command and control, how to work within an environment very specific to the city of Los Angeles. It's a unique place that we work within, to work within those confines. If they've maintained that status, then we have a system in place for them to then get through a location to go get one of the weapons that are actually on the approved list, and for them to then purchase that weapon. That weapon has two functions. As once they purchase that, once they do that process, and they get pre-approval from that process from the department to get that, there's two other additional factors that happen. That weapon must be then inspected by the armorer. They ensure that it's been registered with the state of California under assault weapon certification. And then that weapon is then also inspected and checked again at the Department Armory. It's included in our firearms inventory tracking system, or FIT system. And then before that weapon goes back out, they must qualify back through our rifle program again, which then verifies the weapon is in full function, the weapon is maintaining a proper zero, the functioning of all the equipment is on the approved list, that there is not some equipment that's not approved on that weapon, and they go through the full certification, and they must complete the qualification course.
And how often is the equipment retested? Is it when they qualify, or?
So it's actually tested 3 times. So the first time they get tested is actually before it gets put into our firearms inventory tracking system, our FIT system. So our department armorer will actually inspect that. The other times it does, every time they go back to training and recertification, the instructors are certified as armorers also. They also do inspect, conform, and they check all the weapon and anything else that's been approved on that weapon. That gets checked again. It happens every time we go back through certification.
Last question. And this equipment is taken home by the owner of the officer would take their rifle home.
Oh, so proper storage of the weapon, there are department kit rooms that can store it. We also have department armory facilities for long-term storage of weapons that are available. But the officers then are responsible for the proper storage and maintenance of that weapon system. They are responsible for that, so they do follow our department procedures for a secure and locked case. No improper access to that weapon.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, again, thank you for the comprehensive report. And now that we understand the process going forward, I would move that we approve the department's report and transmit to City Council. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The commission will now recess into closed session. Thank you.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 5A1 and 2 in accordance to Government Code 54957.
Good afternoon. The commission has concluded closed session. We'll have a report out by Executive Director Sibley. Mr. Sibley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 5 at the regular meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners on October 15, 2024, during the closed session, the board made the following findings by a 3-0 vote. Number 1, officer involved shooting, 064-23. For tactics, tactical debrief, 1 police officer 3 and 1 police officer 2. For drawing and exhibition of a firearm, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 3 and 1 police officer 2. For intermediate use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 3. And for lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 3 and 1 police officer 2. And then for 5A2, also by a 3-0 vote, this is officer involved shooting, 069-23. For tactics, tactical debrief, 1 sergeant 1 and 1 police officer 2. For drawing and exhibition of a firearm, in policy, no further action, 1 sergeant 1 and 1 police officer 2. And for lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 2. And that concludes the report out.
Thank you. I make a motion that we adjourn today's meeting. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved in second, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.